Hello, everybody, and welcome to the collab SpacetoCo's free monthly online sessions designed to assist those working in community venues to learn, upskill, and be inspired to do their work more effectively and efficiently. We hope you find these sessions useful for the important work you do in your local communities. For those of you who are watching this recording after this live event, hello, and we hope you get valuable knowledge from this session. My name is Carmela, and I organize these monthly learning series. So, just a little bit about Space to Go before we move on. Our mission in Space to Go is to help community venues be a thriving hub in their communities. We do so by providing opportunities to be able to grow bookings, increase community engagement, as well as support. We also create and provide free resources for those working in community venues. SpacetoCo is a two-sided marketplace where you can list your spaces where guests can find and book them online. It is also an efficient booking system tool where you can reduce your admin by 80%. We work with a number of local governments as well as community centers across Australia, New Zealand, and now the UK. So, just in case, if you didn't already know, today's session is how to build a team culture of success. The culture of your team is the difference between high performance and hidden costs. When culture is strong, teams take ownership, support each other, and deliver consistently. When it's not, performance drops, engagement slips, and leaders spend more time managing issues than driving outcomes. In this session, Tash will be breaking down what it really takes to build a team culture of success, one where people perform at their best, enjoy their work, respect, and hold each other to a high standard. So, as we have already mentioned, cannot high praise. But welcome back to Tash. I just want to introduce Tash. She actually did a session. You're welcome to watch back in that previous collab. It's how to have difficult conversations. But Tash is a certified people leadership coach who helps managers become leaders people actually want to follow. Her mission is to kick out mediocre management and develop legendary leaders. With over 13 plus years in HR and 5 plus years running her own coaching practice, Tash has firsthand experience of what is needed for leadership to be impactful. It is also important to note she is a wife and a mom, so she brings her coaching work the lived experience of living a full life, creating a successful career, running a business, and practicing self care with solid boundaries to ensure she shows up as the best leader she can be across every area of her life. We are so stoked to have Tash back into the collab. And so I'm just going to pop her on the stage, and I'm also going to pop her PowerPoint up here, kick mine out. Welcome, Tash.
Hello, hello.
We can hear you.
Great.
Okay, to the floor, Tash. I'm going to kick myself out. Enjoy, everyone.
Hey. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session. I'm excited to be back in the collab and back here sharing some insights with you. I've got a lot to cram into the session, so hopefully I'll get through it all. And as Kums has said, please just put your questions into the chat, and I'll pause and break throughout the session as well. So I know that the title is how to build a culture of success, but it really also comes back to building high-performing teams. And something that I think is really important when we're talking about high performance, there's two aspects to high performance. There is results, so being able to deliver results, being able to deliver on the outcomes that we need to do and that our team needs to deliver on, plus behavior. So what are the behaviors that the people in our team need to be expressing, to be showcasing? How do we want them to show up and do the work to get the results? If you only have one, so someone who drives good results, but it doesn't have great behavior, that's not high performance. Equally, if you have someone that has great behavior but doesn't drive results, that's also not high performance. We want to make sure that we're building an environment and a culture where the people that we have in our teams are bringing both results and behavior together. So what we're going to cover in this session today is the PACT model for high-performing teams. So over the last 7 years, I actually need to update my bio. Over the last 7 years, I've been working with a lot of organizations and a lot of teams around how can they build environments where people can be successful. And I've kind of developed this into a bit of a model of the 6 elements that it takes to build a high-performing team. I'm also going to, throughout that, weave into what are the leaders' responsibility in building high-performing teams. So yes, we want to be recruiting high performers. We want to be recruiting A players into our team. And we need to have our leadership capability and our leadership skills to be able to actually lead a high-performing team, and also knowing how to build one as well. And then for each section, each part of the model, I'm going to share what some action steps you can take as well to actually start implementing this. Now, I will say that as I mentioned, the PACT model has 6 elements to it. So it's going to sound like a lot, but what I want you to really think about is, what is the one area that you believe will have the highest impact to take away to your team? So I'm going to talk through each of these. So the 6 aspects of the PACT model is vision and intention, connection, expectations and feedback, trust and safety, accountability and action, and supportive systems. Now, don't feel overwhelmed that you have to do everything. As we go through, think about and just self-audit, self-reflect which area would have the highest impact if I were to go back and focus on it. And then as you implement, you can then come back and go, okay, now I can work on another section. So I will just preface that. So we're going to dive straight in. So the first aspect for a high-performing team is vision and intention, because this sets the GPS for your team. When people know where they're going and why, it's easier for them to stay aligned, to stay motivated and move together. I can imagine we've all probably worked for a leader or an organization where the vision seemed a little bit confusing, or it wasn't really clear what we were really doing, where we were going, what we were trying to achieve. And it's really hard to be dedicated, determined, and motivated in environments like that. So as leaders, we need to ensure that our vision is clear. What is the intention of our team? What are the results that we're trying to drive for? What are the strategic objectives we're trying to achieve? And vision and intention, although you can create a vision and intention for your team, it should not be created in isolation. So overall, the organization's vision and intention needs to be clear, because then it filters down into the teams. So if you're in a situation right now where this seems a little bit unclear, maybe this is the nudge of where we need to push, for where we need clarity. And it's the clarity that we need on the why the work they do matters. That's the clarity that people want the most. Yes, they want clarity on how to do things, but they mostly want to know, why am I doing it? We've probably all worked in roles where it's like, I feel like this thing that I'm doing is pointless. It's like, oh, why are we even doing this process? Or why are we doing that? And then we get gaps in our processes and systems. But when we can articulate the why people do what they do, why it matters, how it contributes, people are more invested, right? So, and this is not just having clear KPIs, because why are we doing those specific KPIs? So as a leader, it does take a little bit more time and energy up front to have really thought these things through, because if we can explain it easily, people are far more willing and wanting to buy into it and do it. So when we have our intentions clear, it creates direction and motivation, right? When I know what I need to do, I know what it's going to bring, I know the results that I'm going to get from it, the ability to create motivation is higher, right? It's the difference between rowing together or splashing around in circles, right? We need to know where we're going and why. And essentially, every team member should be able to answer, what are we working toward? Why does this work matter? And how do I contribute to the bigger picture? How does my role and my work contribute to the bigger picture? If your team members can't answer those 3 questions, there is a gap in clarity there. And I would really recommend in your next team meeting to actually ask, hey, are we all on the same page? Can everyone articulate the purpose of our team? Can everyone articulate what we're here to do? Because if you can't, and if it's not simple, what are we doing, right? So if you're going to choose this as your section to work on, do this clarity audit. Do you know what the team is aiming for? Do you know what success looks like? If your team delivered on everything, if they were so successful, if they were the best team in your organization, what would that look like? How are they showing up? What are they doing? What are the attributes? What are the results that they're getting? Do you actually know what success looks like? Because if you don't know what success looks like, how do you know if you've got it? How do you know if you don't have it? And do you know how your role contributes? Not only your role as a leader, but have you articulated what each of your team members' roles contribute? So reflect on those 3 questions and consider where your focus is needed. Where do I need to communicate with my team? Where do I actually maybe need to go and get some more information? Where am I unclear? Remember, leadership is not about being perfect. It's not about necessarily having all the answers all the time. It's being able to reflect and go, where are the gaps in my knowledge, and where do I need to find information to close those gaps? If you're able to do that, you will then help your team do that as well. So that's section number 1, clarity, vision, and intention. And as always, feel free to ask questions as we go as well. Second section, connection, right? High-performing teams isn't just people who like each other. They know each other, right? When you know your team members, your ability to connect with them and wanting to work with them well deepens. And connection is the foundation for trust and collaboration. If I don't have a connection with you, it becomes harder for me to want to trust you. It becomes harder for me to trust you. And if I can't trust you, my ability to collaborate with you well goes down. Not to say that we can't collaborate if there's no trust, but we're not going to do our best work. And it's not about being best friends, right? High-performing teams, they respect each other, right? They respect each other and they know how to work together. It's not about being besties. It's not about, we're just here for the vibes. It's we're here because we are driving towards the same destination. We're delivering on the same results. And we are also willing to disagree. We're willing to challenge each other. We're willing to have constructive conversations. But those are harder to do when there isn't a sense of connection. If you have a team where everyone's just agreeable all the time and everyone's just yes people, are you creating enough friction to create innovation? Are you creating enough friction to create progress? Because if everyone's on the same page all the time, I can guarantee statistically there is someone there not saying something. Right? We want healthy conflict. Successful teams have healthy conflict. We have the ability to say what we need to say, even if it's not what everyone else is saying. And we can't do that without connection. One great way to build connection is understanding strengths and values, right? So I know what I'm strong at and I know where my gaps are. So if I know what Tom, Susie, and Sarah, I know what their strengths are and I know what their gaps are, I can then go, oh, okay, well, I've got this strength and they've got this gap. How can they leverage me? But then also I know I have this gap and they have this strength. How can I leverage them? Right? And then this is how we create connection and this is how we create collaboration, by understanding what our strengths and gaps are. And equally with our values, if I know what's important to you and you know what's important to me, we build a level of respect with that, because I know that I'm not going to overstep these boundaries with you and you're not going to overstep these boundaries with me. Or if I have a challenge with that, then I have a point where we can have that conversation. Right? And the more that we know about each other, and it's not about knowing the deep, dark things about yourself, and you don't have to express anything that you're not comfortable with expressing. However, having an insight into at least our strengths and values as individuals with our team can build a level of connection that goes beyond we just show up and do our jobs. It goes to we're here to show up and be successful together. And what this also promotes is diversity of thoughts, right? We want high-performing teams need diversity of thought, strengths, and style, right? Those things are not just nice to have. It's a competitive advantage. But it only works if we know what they are and we know how to leverage them, right? So this is why we need to be having these conversations as a team. As a manager, you probably know what the strengths are for your individual people, but do your team know it about each other? Are you having those conversations? Are you bridging those connection gaps with them? And overall, having a deeper sense of connection as a team allows your team to play to people's strengths, which means that we get more out of people because we're working with their flow states, we're working with their zones of genius. We can bridge skill and knowledge gaps. We can communicate openly and clearly because we have a basis of understanding. And we also start to create psychological safety because we know what we value, we know where our strengths are, we know where our gaps are, and we have a point of where we can have that conversation. And this can sometimes feel like the more challenging one to create, but the more that we prompt these discussions, the more that we facilitate this to happen. So I want you to have a think about if this is an area of focus for you, a connection audit is something really good to do. If you observe your team, do you get a sense of connection and cohesion with your team? And knowing your team, what would strengthen your team connection more? And if you don't have those answers or you don't know what those answers are, I encourage you to open up that conversation. Create an open moment where you bring these questions up and it's like, hey, we're going into the next quarter or, whatever your financial year is, for many New Zealand companies, you've probably just started your next financial year. Great time to actually have those conversations. Hey, looking at the year ahead, I really want us as a team to be more cohesive, to be more connected. What would it take? What do you need in order to feel more connected to each other? How do you encourage the quiet, unspoken person to speak up, the one who always agrees with what is said but never actually says anything? Yes, that one can be really, really tricky. So there could be lots of reasons to why someone is quiet and doesn't want to speak up. So number one, can be introversion, people, those people who like to internally reflect but don't want to speak up in big groups. There could be some baggage from previous roles where maybe they've spoken up before and it didn't go very well. Maybe they were shot down. Maybe they were, embarrassed or humiliated. We never know what someone's bringing to the table. So if you're noticing that someone, it's like there's someone that's just always quiet, that just goes with it, but you can sense there's something more, I would have a one-on-one conversation first and say, hey, I notice in every team meeting, you seem to agree with everything, but I get the sense that there's something else there. And I really want you to have the opportunity to talk about those things. Can you share can you share them with me now, one-on-one? And then just open up that one-on-one safety and trust first. And then once you kind of start to open that up, then you can start to encourage, hey, what would it take to have you share this with the team? What's stopping you from sharing this in front of the team? And sometimes this is also a leadership gap that needs to be worked on, because if you are not creating an environment where quiet people can speak up, they're not going to speak up. So if you have people in your team who generally take up most of the space while talking, you need to be the one to stop that from happening. So it's not to stop them from talking, but to ensure that there's equal time and space for everyone to have the opportunity to speak up. Because if you, as the facilitator of the meeting, just allows space for one or two people to speak, when is anyone else meant to speak, right? So there's different ways you could do that. You could, say, look, in our next team meeting, this is what we're talking about. I want everyone to bring something to the conversation, which means I'm going to be asking everyone to share. What that means, for more introverted people or more internal thinking people, they'll have time to prepare what they have to say, which means that they'll feel more prepared to speak up in the moment. So you can do little things like that. But number one is do it one-on-one, build that safety and trust, find out if there's a barrier there. And number two is also reflect on how you're facilitating your group meetings as well. Like, are you creating space for everyone to talk and to share? And also, are you giving people opportunity to prepare to share as well? Because not everyone thinks in the moment and, verbally thinks. Oh, it's so interesting, Timothy. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. All right. So going to our next one. So this is probably one of the most important aspects to high-performing teams: expectations and feedback. One of the biggest problems to high-performing teams is misaligned expectations. And this is one of the biggest causes for underperformance, conflict, and confusion. When expectations are not clearly communicated and they're not dealt with early. And most managers and teams think that expectations have been set, but in reality, they haven't really done it clearly enough. And I have in my leadership program, there is literally a whole module on setting expectations, because this is not something I can do in a quick 5-minute overview. But number one is, have I clearly communicated the outcome that I'm looking for, the deadline that I want, that I need, ask them for any inputs that they might need from me, and given them any additional insights and help that they would need to do it. It's not necessarily telling them exactly how to do something, because sometimes that can be micromanaging, but outlining what success looks like, what does done look like, what's the outcome that we're looking for. And sometimes we're not even clearly articulating that. So expectations essentially include why they need to do the thing. Again, why. People are more willing to buy into it and do it if they know why it's important. What does done look like? If you don't know what done looks like, tell them. Say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z done. I don't know what the end product looks like yet, but this is kind of my idea, but I really want you to run with it. If that's the play, then make sure that that's clear. There is nothing worse than telling someone to go and do something. They go and spend hours on it. They come back and you're like, no, that's not really what I wanted. Well, how were they supposed to know that? Right? If you have an idea of how something needs to be done and what it needs to look like, it's your responsibility to say it. It's not your team's responsibility to read minds and try and figure it out, unless that is the aim of what you're trying to do. If you want them to figure it out and have freedom to do that, you need to be willing to work through the outcome of what you get back, right? The timeline for delivery. Do not say, yep, just work on it, and then 2 days later be like, where is the thing I asked you to do? Well, you didn't tell me it was done and it was needed in 2 days, right? We need clear things. And I've had managers tell me, it's like, yes, but why should I have to do all of this? Because it's your job. If you want people to perform, they need to know the parameters in which they need to perform. It's like, no elite athlete is training for something not knowing what the success criteria is. No elite athlete is training for a 100-meter race not knowing what the current record is that they're trying to break. Right? Like, people need to know these things in order to deliver. And yes, in some cases, the more senior your team members get, the more they will know these things, but not always, right? And they don't know what's going on in your mind. So if there are clear things that you need your team to deliver on, it's your responsibility to communicate them. Some other things that's really important around expectation setting. What's the impact if this doesn't get done? What's the benefit if it does get done? Right? Again, why does this matter? Do we need check-ins? If this is a really big thing you're asking them to do, would check-ins be helpful? Ask that question. Don't just assume. And what coaching or support is needed? Again, don't assume. We know what assuming does. So don't do it, right? If there is any risk that there is a confusion when asking someone to do something, ask the question, hey, are we on the same page from what we've spoken about? Hey, is there anything that I need to do a better job at explaining? Take ownership that you might not be good at explaining things all the time, and open up that question so that they have the opportunity to share it back. But this is so important. If we are not setting clear expectations, it makes it harder to give feedback. Feedback becomes easier when our expectations are clear because we have a reference point. I can give you feedback because this is the initial conversation we had, so I can come back to it. So I want you to have, if this is an area of focus for you, an expectation audit is really, really good. Like, what does good teamwork look like in our team? What does ownership mean to us? What do we expect when someone drops the ball? And what kind of feedback culture do we want to create? And actually, additional question that I would add here is, do I believe I'm good at setting expectations? And maybe I need to ask for feedback on how I set expectations. Again, one of the best leadership skills that we can have, or traits that we can have, is a little bit of vulnerability. You're not going to get it right all of the time. Sometimes you're going to slip. Sometimes you're going to do it badly. Sometimes you're going to miss it altogether. But you need to be willing to self-reflect and go, hey, maybe I can do better here. And maybe I need to open up. I need to be vulnerable by asking those questions. But expectations is really key. If you have a lot of frustrating moments in your day, a lot of pain points currently within your team, 9 times out of 10, I've worked with leaders that we can pinpoint it to a lack of expectations, a lack of clear expectations. All right, and the best example that I can always bring to this is how many times have we expected our partners to do something, but we've never talked about it, and then we get angry that they haven't done it. It's the same thing, right? You can't expect someone to do something if you haven't talked about it. Expectations are only expectations when they're communicated out loud. Okay. Next piece, trust and safety. You can't have performance without people, and you can't have people functioning at their best without trust, right? Performance and trust are hand in hand. Trust and safety is what takes any team to the next level. Trust and safety are not just a nice to have. If you have not focused on this with your team, there is a gap there, right? They're the non-negotiable foundation for risk-taking, creativity, open communication, and accountability. People are not willing to take accountability for their actions if they don't believe that they are trusted, right? If they don't feel safe to do so. That's why people are just like, oh, that's not my problem. I'm just going to stay over here. I'm not going to put my hand up because I don't feel like I trust this team. It's the same thing. People aren't going to go on a limb to take a risk, to be creative, to be vulnerable, to share things that are uncomfortable, or to disagree if they don't feel like they have safety and trust within the team to do that. And as a leader, you need to be the one to lean into that first. And this comes back to my point that I was talking about earlier around the person who, how do you deal with quiet people? One of the things that I talk about a lot in my leadership work is baggage. When you're dealing with someone, when you're dealing with your team or managing your team, you're not managing them in that moment. You're managing them with everything that's come before them. All of their experiences from childhood, from school, from their previous jobs, from their shitty managers, from their best managers, they're carrying all of that into this moment. You're not dealing with this person right here in front of you in this situation. And so that's why we can sometimes be confronted by responses or reactions, because it's like, whoa, why are they reacting this way? It's like not even a big deal, because we don't know what's been activated from the past that's brought that up. And so we want to ensure that we're creating a space where people, feel trust and feel safety. Not necessarily that they have to dump everything or like expose themselves completely, but that they could possibly say, hey, in my last work experience, this and this happened. This is why I really struggled to do X, Y, Z. And you're like, oh, okay, now I know that. Now I can lead in a different way, or now I can have some different conversations. We need to have trust and safety, and this is what ties into psychological safety, right? Psychological safety is not about being comfortable all the time. It's about feeling safe to be honest, to make mistakes, to challenge ideas, and to ask for help without the fear of embarrassment or punishment. And this isn't about what you say as a leader. This is about what you do. This is about your facial expressions. This is about the energy you give off. You can say, hey, I trust you all. I trust that you guys are just doing your job and doing a great job. But then you're constantly checking in all the time. You're constantly, questioning everything that they're doing. You're reworking their work all the time. Do those actions match the words? And if you're feeling the need to do those actions, what's missing? What's the gap? Likely some expectations, probably. Right? We need to be really conscious around trust and respect and trust and safety. And there's something that I think about all the time, and I think about it in terms of a trust bank account. Every interaction you have with someone either deposits trust into their bank account or it withdraws trust from their bank account. So every time as a leader you follow through on what you said you were going to do, or you recognize, something that they've done, or, you give feedback that's really helpful to them, or you're just interested in them, that will deposit trust into their bank account. Every time you undermine them, you embarrass them, you undercut them, withdraws trust from their bank account. Now, this is not to say you need to be perfect. This is not to say every interaction, the focus is to deposit trust into their bank account, because sometimes you could be doing something with the right intentions and it still withdraws some trust, purely because of how someone interprets that or takes that. But the aim is, can I deposit more trust than I withdraw, right? Because we're going to withdraw some at some point. That's just the nature of being human. That's just the nature of relationships. What we want to ensure is that we're not withdrawing from a very, very empty bank account. So I want you to really think about, as a leader, am I doing enough to deposit trust into my team's bank account? Am I doing enough to show them that I do value them, that I am interested in them, that I do respect them, that I want them here? Am I doing enough of those things so that when inevitably I'm going to withdraw some, I have a healthy balance to work with? And this is something good to think about for any relationship, not just at work, any relationship you have with another person. So I want you to have, if you're going to focus on this area, just do a bit of a trust audit. People in the team speak up even when they disagree. Probably high trust. The team engages in healthy conflict. Probably high trust. Team members sort out conflict amongst themselves. They don't come to you and talk behind each other's backs and, have passive-aggressive discussions. Probably high trust. We share what's uncomfortable so we can get support. Probably high trust. If these things are not happening within your team, there needs to be some trust work happening here. And it can start with just having some conversations, just asking some questions to start with, probably one-on-one. Right. Second to last one, accountability and action. This one is closely linked to expectations. When our expectations are clear, as soon as we transfer expectation, we communicate that, we have agreement of the expectation, we inevitably create accountability, because that person has agreed to following through on that thing, inevitably starts to create accountability. But ultimately, when we have environments where we don't have accountability, which then also means we don't have action, all the vision and values in the world won't move the needle. You could have the best vision, the best intentions, you could have the highest trust, you could, have all of the good vibes in your team, but if you don't have accountability and action, you don't really have much. You've just got a good vibey team, but you don't have a high-performing team. You don't have the results, right? We need to be doing the things that move the needle. So in a task-based team, people wait to be told what to do. They tick boxes, and when things go wrong, they usually blame something else, right? They usually blame a process, a system, another person when things go wrong. There's no accountability of what they are doing and what their part was in that thing happening or not happening. But an accountability-focused team, which is the ideal team we want, people are proactively identifying what's needed. They're taking initiative. They're taking the lead. They take responsibility for outcomes, not just actions. The way that you can identify this is tick boxes are just doing the boxes. They're just ticking the boxes to get it done, but they're not thinking forward to what outcome is this having to the outcome, or what contribution is this having to the outcome, right? They're not necessarily thinking in their head. They're just going and doing the next thing. In an accountability-focused team, people care about the whole team's success, not just me and what I'm doing. They're thinking about, okay, well, my role interacts with this role in this way. Oh, okay, when I do or don't do this thing, it has this impact. We want to have a team where people care about what everyone else is doing. If everyone's just working in isolation, why are they in a team? What's the point? right? We want our teams to be cohesive and working together. And accountability-focused people hold themselves and others to account. They're not waiting for someone to hold them to account. They're holding themselves to account on the actions and the outcomes that they need to drive. They're doing the same for their team as well. So this is where the healthy conflict, the healthy disagreement is really important. So accountability audit is really important in this section. So again, really think about, do my team members take ownership for their work and delivering results? When I talk to them about what's going on, how do they talk about their work? How do they talk about their outcomes and their results? Are they passive or are they active? Are there gaps where work gets dropped and things get missed? If so, what happens? Does it just stay a gap until eventually someone notices because it becomes an issue? Or are people taking ownership of it as soon as it happens? Or they're preempting it? And really think about, where does the team need to take more accountability so better results are delivered? Where does your team need to step up? Again, this could be a conversation that you have. You don't have to do this in isolation because you may not be seeing everything all the time. Especially if you have got some remote teams, this will be harder as well because so much of the work isn't exactly visible all the time. So this is where we need to be having these conversations as much as possible. And lastly, supportive systems. High-performing teams cannot be high-performing unless they have supportive systems, right? So high-performing teams don't rely on good memory or good vibes. Vibes seems to be my key word today. They have systems that make success repeatable, right? Again, if I think back to like high-performance and elite athletes, they're not just taking it on a whim of how they feel day to day for training. They have a coach, they have a structure, they know what their training program is, and they're showing up, right? Like they know what they need to be doing. They're not just taking it on a whim. They've got their system in place and they know that by following that system, they get the result and it's repeatable, right? When systems are clunky, unclear, or non-existent, even the best people can't do their best work. And I know that if I asked people to put their hand up, give me a yes in the chat. If you've ever worked in a company that has clunky, unclear, or non-existent systems, did you just love every day? Was it just fabulous? Or did you literally feel like you were banging your head against the wall? And I'm not saying it's easy to get great systems. Like, yes, there are teething problems and yes, there is always going to be something that isn't working. But if 90% of the systems are horrible, how do you think people can do their best work? Right? We need to think about that. How can we make it easy for people to be successful? How can we make it easier for people to show up and do great work? Supportive systems create clarity, consistency, and calm. That's the holy trinity, I believe. If people have clarity, they know that if I do this on repeat, it'll work. I feel more calm, which means I do better work. We know scientifically that our prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning system, reduces when we're stressed. So if we're stressed by systems, how well is my brain functioning? Not very well, right? We're not getting the best of our people. So good systems look like having agreed processes for decision making. How do decisions get made? And who makes what decisions? What does planning and prioritization look like? Is everyone on the same page? What does communication and updates look like within the team and within the business? Do people know where they get communication from? Do they know when they get it? Do they know where to go look for it? Meetings. Yes, everyone's meeting can probably be better. Are our meetings delivering what they are meant to be delivering? Are they using people's time in the best way? If we're having a meeting to have a discussion, that's not a meeting. Every meeting needs to have clear outcomes and clear actions. And ideally, every meeting you walk out of, you should have less actions than when you walked into them. Because we want to be trying to create as much action and decisions as we can in the meeting with the people in the room. right? So really thinking about how can we actually make our meetings better? How can we make our meetings more supportive to people being more successful? But this, this goes deeper into what are the systems we are having, what are the systems we're using in our team? What are their purpose? What are we expecting from the different systems we have? And I know in a lot of environments, like, you're not going to have control over this. Sometimes there are systems that are legacy systems, or they were brought in by someone else, and you don't have control over whether you can and can't use them. But then how can we make them more productive within our team? How can we think about ways that our processes can make this more productive and more useful? So if this is an area for you, a system scan is a really good thing to do. So what system, or lack of one, is slowing your team down right now? What system are your team using, or maybe they need, they don't have, that's slowing them down? What's one recurring frustration that can be solved with a better process? If something is happening more than 3 times, it is a problem. If something is happening more than 3 times, it is a pattern that needs to be addressed. So doing a system scan on what is like recurring frustrations and problems that are happening is really, really key to figure out, okay, what do we need to put in place? And what is a system you currently have that no one is using as it's meant to be, as it's intended? And why is that? For example, if you have a project management system like, I don't know, Asana or something, and it's like, oh, this was cool, this is good visibility, but no one's really using it properly. Why is that? Is our intention still clear? Was the training right? Is that actually what we needed to get the outcome we were looking for? So being really, really critical of what are the current systems and processes we're using, and making sure that they're actually functioning for the desired outcome and result that you need them. So overall, I know I've gone through this super quick, so come back and rewatch it. And as I said, every one of these actually is a workshop in itself. And it's what I run through my leadership program, that you need to go deep into each of them. But this is a really good just insight at a high level to go, okay, what are the things that I need to be thinking about? And what are the things that I need to be asking more questions around or observing a bit more? But overall, from the session, I want you to choose the one area where you believe focusing on will make the biggest difference. And then within that area, commit to one action you will do each week to level up that area within your team. And work on one for, say, the next 2 to 3 months. Again, it's not about getting things done quickly, it's about getting things done properly. And then get help or support where you might get stuck so you can tackle it head on and progress and keep moving forward. You don't have to have all the answers yourself, but you need to start taking some action. All right, so let me just hit to the questions. I have a question around responding to feedback from team members. So I want to encourage them to provide feedback around our operating systems and work environment. However, I need to manage their expectations because we've had some unrealistic feedback in the past. Yes, that's such a good question, Connie. So what I would recommend is when you're asking for feedback when you're asking for any feedback, so this is actually just feedback in general, is be specific in what you are wanting. So a lot of people give us feedback on this thing, and then they get all of this feedback and you're like, oh my gosh, there's 90% of this that I can't do anything with. But what you can do is be more specific in your request for feedback. So you could say, I'm looking for feedback on this system, in particular XYZ. I can't take feedback on ABC because we can't control those aspects of the system right now. So we're focusing on this, and I want to hear your insight on that. So that's the way that we can manage just being more specific in how we ask for feedback, because then you can say okay, well, I got that feedback. As I mentioned, we can't do anything with this portion of the system right now. So if you've got anything for this portion, I'd love to hear it, but I will take note of that and I'll keep it there if we get there at some stage. So that's one way you could do it. Another way that you can do it is, ask for feedback, and then, when you get all the feedback. You can say, you know, I really loved receiving A, B, and C. I want to make it clear that I heard what you had to say. This is why we can't do it right now, or this is why this feedback can't be actioned right now. So just, again, addressing and just being honest. Say, hey, I really love this feedback. Right now, this is within our control. Right now, this is what we can and can't do. Like, that's always going to be a better option than like just ignoring it. Right? And people understand, you know, when we open up feedback, people will just give whatever they can because it's within the realm of feedback, especially when people are frustrated. They will give anything and everything when asked about something that they're frustrated about. So number one is also build your resilience to getting frustration vomit as well, is, you know, just building the resilience that's like, yep, I get it, but this is what I can do with it. And just be honest. Some people will like it, some people hate it, and you're just not going to be able to please it all. But being open and honest about it is the best thing that you can do. Hopefully that helps, Connie. Al, are there any daily, weekly, monthly routines, actions you can suggest to become a better leader? Number one would be observe. So at least daily or weekly is just do more observing. Do more observing of your team in terms of just their interactions. Like, it's really interesting how people change subtly, but if you're paying attention, you'll notice it really quickly. You know, so just pay attention to like people, because I know, Al, as well, you work remote, if I'm thinking about the right Al. You work remote, so you're not seeing your team every single day. So, you know, just take note of like, well, how are people generally interacting on your, you know, on Slack or Teams or whatever you're using. And then, you know, just observe mannerisms, ways of talking, ways of working, ways people think. And then you'll notice when things change. And also, the more that you observe, the more meaningful your conversations with people can be, because you can use them as points of discussion. You can use them as points of, you know, discussion, of questions in your one-on-ones, you know, all of those things. So that would be a daily and weekly one. Monthly routines would be at least having good team meetings. So making your team meetings more productive, making them more targeted, making them more specific. And again, focusing on things like I mentioned earlier around facilitating your meetings a lot better. So making sure that everyone has the opportunity to speak up, being more prepared with topics that you're going to be discussing. So giving people a heads up about what you're going to be talking about so that those who need time to prepare get that opportunity. Making sure that, you know, people who over talk get capped so that everyone else has the opportunity to talk. Actually invite disagreement. So, you know, one good hack of inviting disagreement, and this is a good thing for leaders to do more of, is instead of saying, why do you think this will work? Tell me why you think this won't work. And make that a reoccurring question. Let's talk about why this idea won't work. Let's talk about why this process could break. Let's talk about why this process could be more of a problem than a good option. If we want more of something, we need to ask ourselves, how can I ask the question to get it? Right? So if there is something you want more of, what's the question you need to ask to get it? What's the open moment you need to create to get it? Hopefully that's helpful, Al. Also, what does PACT stand for? I may have missed this. Gosh, can't even remember. What does PACT stand for? Oh my gosh. I think I initially created it because I only had 4 elements to a high-performing team. And now it's just gone completely out of my mind. That's pretty terrible that I don't even have my acronym properly there. But I think I just liked PACT. So I'll need to think about that one. So no, I don't have a lovely name for it, Al, other than PACT. So I think it was also because when we're high performing teams form a pact. So it's like if you have a pact together, yeah, you can build high performing teams. It's pretty terrible. I should have thought about that. Let me have a look at the Q&A tab, make sure I haven't missed anything. Nope. Okay. Anyone else have any questions before we finish up? And any feedback you have, please pop into the chat your biggest takeaway. I would love to hear it. And
Yes.
as always, I know Calms will provide the slides as well, so you'll get the slides, and then there's also my information there if you want to get in contact with any of it with me as well.
Thank you so much, Tash. Before I kick you off a little bit, I just wanted to share some of my key takeaways. And I think people continue to share their key takeaways or any love to Tash. Send the big vibes, as Tash said. Well, this session was packed, maybe not PACT, but packed in the way that it was like I was continuously writing notes and I was so stoked. But some of the things that stood out to me was, if you don't know what success looks like, how do you know you have it? Connection is the key to trust and collaboration. No connection means not being able to do my best work. High performing teams connect and respect one another and have healthy conflict. And then one that I was just listening, and I thought I was done writing notes, and then you just suddenly said, "Are you creating enough friction for innovation?" And I was like, "Oh, what is happening? This is this is so good." And the last thing I really loved was, we are not only here to show up and do our job, we are here to show up and be successful together. We want our teams to care about what each other is doing, and I really love that. But yeah, it was awesome. Just keep in mind, everyone, I know some of you guys may have other questions that may have popped up while even watching this recording. You're more than welcome to reach out to Tash outside of the collab. And I highly, 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 highly recommend it, because also, if you are a leader or a manager that is looking for more professional development in terms of your leadership or management skills, like as Tasha has mentioned, she does run her own leadership coaching business. She's not just like, a speaker for the collab that we try and get every year, because she's awesome. But honestly, if there's something here that you connected with Tash, or you felt like you can really get more from Tash to help you with your work and your teams and just your management skills, and just to grow in that way, please connect with her and take advantage of what she has to offer for everybody. Yeah, she has a great podcast. I literally listen to it. Free resources. Tash is like her own Oprah of leadership management.
Yeah, it's called Lead with Less. It's on a bit of a hiatus at the moment, but there's a 2.5 year bank there that you can go back and listen to. So.
Yeah, you'll get a lot already. But other than that, thank you so much, Tash. So stoked to have had you and to have shared all the knowledge that you have in this space, and really hope that everything that you've shared to the people who are watching this can really take that away, just grapple with it a little bit more, reflect on it, and then just apply it into their teams and into their organization. So thank you once again, and I'll see you.
You're so welcome. Yes, Eden, please. Absolutely. And as I mentioned, everyone, please just focus on one thing to start with. Like, don't get overwhelmed by trying to do everything. Start with one thing, get progress, get commitment, be consistent, and then go from there.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome that Tash did audits. So even that, right? Because it was such a packed session. So just even focusing on the audits. And again, you're probably like, I didn't write it down fast enough. We will send you all of her slides and whatever resources that may apply to this session. So without further ado, we're going to say goodbye to Tash now.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. And so we don't want to, what's happening here? Remove from stage. I'll add my thing back on stage. But before you guys go, I have 4 minutes, but I'll get this done before that. Tash is Oprah in her lane, but SpacetoCo, we are the Oprah for our lane in terms of community venues and council resources. So yes, we give away free resources to all of you guys who work in community venues. That's right, you heard it, free. You get a resource, you get a resource, you get an ebook, you get a guide, you get extra. This is what, the 35th webinar? Yeah, you have 35 free webinars to watch. But yes, we will link all of this in the email that you will be receiving after this webinar. And without further ado, next month's collab session will be on, whoa, your data, your story, turning numbers into impact. And so this is all about learning how your data can tell your story. So join us for a hands-on webinar designed for community centers and council teams, ready to make their impact impossible to ignore. We'll show you how to transform the data you already collect into compelling narratives for annual reports, grant proposals, and social media. No data expertise required. For some of you guys who want to know more, what you'll get from it is practical tips for turning raw stats into stories for annual reports, grant applications, and social media posts, real examples from community organizations communicating impact effectively on a small budget, and a take-home toolkit you can use straight away with your existing data and reporting process. Wow, let's go. Some of you guys are like, yes, this is my session. So if this is something that you would like to jump into, register for next month. But if not, if it's something that will be impactful for another person in your team, please share the webinar to them. But without further ado, thank you everybody for joining us for April's collab. This was awesome. We thank you for taking the time to just spend it with us and learn more to grow your community venues and your teams. We hope that you continue to do great work out there. Make those magics in those local communities. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.